Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Art is for Everyone here on YouTube. And I thought we would stick with the holiday theme, that winterish theme that we kind of had last time. And I'm going to paint a snowman. And so we're going to use our Art is for Everyone palette. I have here a piece of 4x6 cold press watercolor paper. So any cold press watercolor paper, really in any size you want is fine. I just have mine at this size because I would like to use these as cards to give with gifts. And you can, the fun thing about this project is they're really quick to paint, and you could line up like 6 cards and do 6 at a time and let them dry and then do the next step and just keep going like that. So at the end, I'll show you a couple other ones that I've done. So I've got my watercolor paper, and then I've got my Art is for Everyone paint set from Wildthorne. And if you don't have this, you can use any watercolors at all. And if you look in the description box, I'm just cleaning up my paints. I didn't clean them last time I used them. I give substitutions in this description box if you want to use any other paints. These are basically standard colors. There's nothing, overly unique here except for maybe the Bois de Rose, which is really just a pale Venetian red. Okay, so I just love them. They're beautiful paints. They're really fun to work with. They're a little bit different than traditional watercolors, but traditional watercolors are perfect for this as well. And then I have a glass of water and a little washcloth to wipe my brush. I've got a mixing plate here. And then today I just grabbed a Chinese paintbrush. But this would be sort of like a number 6 or a number 8 pointed round is fine. So any pointed round will do. One thing that I really like to encourage with my videos is you don't have to have the same materials as me. The materials matter. Good quality materials matter in the end, but really we can use our favorite things and still have beautiful results and similar results. So the main thing is that we use quality things, that we're not trying to use a child's stiff white paintbrush that doesn't come to a point. I mean, that's going to be a deterrent and make your work really, really hard. But any pointed round watercolor brush that comes to a point, synthetic, sable, doesn't matter, is fine. Okay, so you don't have to have the same supplies as what I have. I try to make it work for everyone because, well, that's the whole idea here, right? So let's start. And we're going to start by putting a layer of snowmen down. And I have to decide if I want to do one or more. And I think I'm going to do 2 snowmen. So I'm going to turn my paper this way horizontally, so it's sort of a landscape. And we're going to mix up some gray. And we're going to start by using blue. So any blue really is fine, because blue and orange, so we'll take our burnt sienna, make gray. So anytime you put a reddish orange or burnt sienna into blue, you're going to get gray. And I want it to be a little bit on the blue side still, so that is perfect. So I just want to make a gray. You can also just use like a Davies gray paint or even a Payne's gray paint, really diluted. But the beauty of mixing your own gray is that sometimes when you're using the technique that we're using, the paint colors will separate a little bit, and it gives a really beautiful effect that I like. So this is really, really easy, and it's going to be hard for you to see the water glaze. Maybe you'll see the shine of it, but the idea is simple. I'm going to start truly by deciding where I want my snowman. I'm going to put my first one right here, and I'm just going to paint a circle of water, and I'm going to pick up my gray paint and I'm going to drop it around the edge. the bottom edge of my circle, not all the way around, just here and there around the edge. And then I'm going to take my wet paintbrush and I'm just going to sort of soften it in. We don't have to have perfect edges here. We're just looking for some gray shadow tinting that clear water glaze. See? Pretty light. And this is going to dry lighter. Remember that watercolor dries about 20% lighter. So it's going to be lighter than this. Immediately, I'm going to take more water and I'm going to paint another circle underneath. And we don't have, you know, the beauty of this as well is that every single snowman will be different. So we just sort of randomly paint a water glaze down. Pick up my gray paint again, drop some toward the bottom, and drop some kind of where the two circles meet. Rinse my brush, and then use my brush to soften and sort of spread that paint around a little bit. See? Really, really simple. Okay, so now I have my first snowman. All right, so to the right of it, I'm going to make another one, and I'm going to make this one maybe with 3 snowballs. So I'll start a little bit higher and put in my circle. And don't think too much about this. Don't think, how do I want his head to be? Don't think about it, just do it, because the randomness of it is what gives them personality. Okay, they're all going to be a little different. Some of them will be a little wonky. It gives them personality. You'll be amazed. If you let it be random, you're going to have better results. All right, right away, I'll go right underneath it and drop another circle a little bit bigger. It's okay if they touch. Grab my gray paint. Drop some at the edges, a little bit where they meet, and then use my clean brush to sort of soften. And then one more, a bigger one at the bottom. Grab my gray paint. Drop in the bottom of my snowball, and especially where they meet, you want there to be a little bit of a shadow. Rinse my brush, dry it off, and just soften if you need to. This one was really wet, so I didn't have to soften as much. Plus my gray was getting diluted. So I can add a little bit more here where they meet, and a little bit more around the edge because my gray was getting a little diluted. So now I have the bodies of 2 snowmen. Okay? We have to let this layer dry completely because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put hats on them and scarves and button eyes and a carrot nose and twigs for arms. Okay? So we're going to let this dry completely and then we'll be back to finish. Okay, so my snowmen are now dry and now we're going to put on his little accoutrement. And we're going to start with hats. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up, I'm going to use some water rose, so some kind of peachy pinky red, so Venetian red would be great, or any kind of peachy pinky red, or even purple or green or whatever you want, because it's just a hat. And we're going to start with a small snowman. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to paint a long skinny rectangle, sort of misshapen, along the top of his head. Okay? And then, see how I just made the outline? And then I'm just going to use the tip of the brush to draw some lines down, and then I'll just fill in this side. Okay? That gives it the kind of the illusion by leaving those little white spaces that there's some ribbing. And then I'm going to sort of pretend like this is the top of his head and just make a little squiggly mark almost. just a little shape. I mean, it's super easy. So you see, I just made a little lumpy shape. And then at the top of that, I made like a little point at the end. I'm just gonna take the tip of my brush and make sort of a little pom-pom with little tick marks like that. You see how I just use the tip of my brush? Okay? And while it's still wet, okay, so while my battery died, I had to drop in some darker color. So I just took some Cian Brûlée or burnt sienna, and I just touched my brush to the right-hand side and let it just whoosh out. And then I put a little bit here at the top of the pom-pom. And that just gives the hat a little bit more dimension by using two colors, a lighter color and a darker color, okay, that we get a little bit of variation in our hat, all right? And then I'm going to make another kind of hat on this snowman. So this hat, this is the basic premise of it. So let me just show you. I'm going to do a hat again. Hold on one second. I'm going to do one more so you can see that another time in this tiny sketchbook. So let's choose another color this time. I think I'll make a blue hat. So I'm going to use blue first, and then I want a little bit of a darker blue, so I'll take a little bit of blue and mix some Cian Brûlée into it, some burnt sienna to make it a little bit darker. Okay, so I'm going to start with blue, and at the top of the head I'm just making a little misshapen long rectangle. So it just sort of fits along the top of the head, okay? And then I take the tip of my brush and I just make little marks down. And then on this side, I'll just sort of fill it in. Okay? And then on the top of the head, I just sort of pretend, because it's fitting on his head, so you want it kind of to follow the shape of the head, and then just let it kind of go up to a point. And this, see how misshapen? I'm not being precious with this. And then I'm just making little tick marks for a pom-pom. Okay, that's it. Then I take the darker color and I just drop some in on the right-hand side and where the rim is separated from the top of the hat, and then some at the base of the pom-pom. That's all I have to do for a hat. Okay, you can make them any different color. Each one will be different. You can put a different color pom-pom on it. You can put stripes on it. You can do whatever you want. It's just a really simple shape. And I find when I make the little brim, if I just on one side just put some little tick marks and then fill in the rest, it sort of gives me the illusion of ribbing. Okay, so that's what I wanted you to see. All right, so let's get back to our hats. Now we're going to make a different kind of hat on this one. We'll make more sort of a floppy black hat. And so I'm going to make black by using raw umber. So you can use any black, but I'm going to make sort of a dark, I'm going to use these blues here. Add more blue to it. So I'm making sort of a dark gray. Okay, that's going to be my black. If you have black paint, use black paint. Use Payne's gray. Doesn't matter. Use a dark brown. It's a hat, so you can use whatever you want. But I'm making a dark gray here. And I'm going to start by putting another rectangle on top of his head, but it's going to be flattened off at the top and then get a little bit bigger toward the bottom, and it's just going to sort of go across the top of his head. Okay? And then I can fill that in a little bit. And then for most of it, I'm just going to fill it in with a wet brush. So by not filling the whole thing in with paint, okay, I'm giving it a little variation. It makes it more interesting. All right? So that's the top of my hat. Then I'm going to take the same paint and I'm going to start about here and I'm going to connect it, okay? And then make a little line out this way. All right? And then I'm going to connect these two lines. You see that? See what I did there? And then the same thing. I'm going to skip a little space So there's a little bit of white there. And then use a wet brush to blend it all into that space. See what I did? Really, really simple little floppy hat. Okay? So our hats are done. Now, you could do anything to this hat. You could paint a flower coming out of it. You could put a red stripe where we left that spot. If you wanted to put a ribbon on it, you can decorate it however you want. But these are just two hat shapes that you can use and then make variations on them. Because what I hope is that you'll line up a whole bunch of pieces of watercolor paper and just make a whole family of snowmen that you can send out as holiday cards, or you can put onto holiday gifts. They're just really fun. All right, so our hats are done. So now I want to make a scarf, and I'm going to make a scarf on this snowman because I have a little more room. And I'm going to mix up a color. I had mixed up here some green and some blue to make sort of a teal. Green and blue. So any green and blue, or if you have a teal, or make it any color you want. And then I put a little touch of brown in it just to sort of mute it a little bit. I wanted mine kind of muted. And then I'm going to start at his neck, and I'm going to make a little line, and I'm going to make like a little wedge shape, like a little triangle. Okay? So sort of fill in between his head and his body. And then I'm going to make one on the other side. So, and this one might be a little longer. Okay? You see how it looks like they're sort of wrapped around? And then I'm going to make another one coming this way. Okay? And then I'm going to take it and I'm going to sort of make a long, flowy rectangle coming down. And I'm going to draw diagonal lines down the scarf. Okay? Wet my brush, use clear water, and use clear water to fill in these spaces. So I'm not going all over it, I'm truly just going in between with clear water. And you'll see it just gives it a little variation and the hint of like a knitting pattern or stripes, or to make it just look a little bit better than just solid. Okay, isn't that fun? And then I can take a little bit more on my brush and I can just put some fringe. Just really random, just put some fringe on the bottom. Okay, nice long scarf. So now our snowman, I'm not going to put a scarf on this one, but I'm going to put buttons on him. So I'm going to use the same color that I used for the hat. And I'm just going to go down his body and put 3 little like hook shapes. See that? Rinse my brush and then fill in with clear water. Okay, so there's his buttons. Now let's make eyes. So I'm going to make a little bit more of my dark gray. You can also use Payne's gray or even black diluted. And we're going to make eyes. So I'm going to make eyes by just making little circles. They should all be different. And then we'll make a little mouth. Or you can leave it without a mouth. So this one's eyes I'm going to have coming right from under the hat, so it's a little bit different and a little bit different personality. Okay? And then this one, just a little bit of a smile. And you don't have to put the smiles on. You might like it without the mouth. It has a little bit more of a, I guess, an elegant look, but I like the smiles. And then I'm going to mix up some orange for the nose. So I'm going to use Water Rose. You could use, if you don't have this set, you can mix any orange with any red and yellow. So because this set, the colors are a little bit more subdued than traditional watercolors, my colors will be subdued. And so I like that. All right, and for nose, truly, just a little bit of an off-center triangle. And any way you do it is fine. Very, very simple, okay? Now, the last thing that our snowman needs is some twigs for arms. You don't have to. You don't have to put them, but it's kind of fun. So I'm going to take more of my raw umber and just mix it into this gray. So I have kind of a dark gray brown. And I'm going to take my tip of my brush and pull it out. And just make sort of a twig coming out. Very, very simple. And maybe this one doesn't have it, you know, just to make them a little bit more balanced. So that, my friends, is a really simple snowman. Now, to sort of ground it to the paper, what we can do is take a little bit of violet and mix it into our dark brown, blue, gray, whatever we have on our palette. It doesn't matter. The darkest color. Mix a little bit of violet into it, or purple. If you don't have purple, you can make purple with red and blue. And just mix a little bit of purple into your darkest color. And then we're just going to give our snowman a little bit of a grounding. So I'm going to put a little tiny line of purple under him, and then use clear water to soften it out. Okay, so a little bit right under him, and then clear water to soften it out. And it just it just grounds them a little bit, and that's all. Okay? Super, super simple. I'll show you two other ones that I made. They're really cute. I hope you'll make just a whole bunch of them, and that each one will be a little bit different. Now, when they dry, I will say this. If you notice that they became too light in places, you can always go back to that gray and just put a tiny bit where you want a little bit more shadow. So if I felt like I needed more, I could put a tiny bit in, and then take clear water and just soften it. Just soften it. Okay? So that's it. A super, super simple project. You could even do this with your children or grandchildren. Just something fun to do. Just something fun. All right, I hope you're having a great day, and I will see you next week with a dandelion lesson. And I'm also planning on doing sort of a technique video here. So that will be coming up soon as well. Take care. Thank you.